The Spectre, the spirit of vengeance. The Spectre Force was created to be an instrument of divine retribution. Over the eons, it has bonded with mortals to form the grim revenant known as the Spectre. The Spectre is a disembodied wraith with one mission: to punish evildoers on behalf of the Almighty. It is nothing less than the embodiment of God's anger, both powerful and terrifying. From the dawn of creation, the Spectre Force has been unstoppable, moving out divine justice to those who under the innocent. Since the death of Christ, the Spectre has always fused with a mortal host to serve as a moral guide and anchor. The Spectre's current human host is the deceased Gotham detective, Crispus Allen. Together they form one of the more powerful beings in the universe. In the beginning was the Presence, the supreme being who created the universe. Seconds after creation, Lucifer's army of Hell's angels tried to seize control of heaven, but they were cast out by the archangels led by Michael. These rebels were thrown into the flaming depths of hell for all eternity, where they all became demons. One was different. The fallen angel, named Astazar, forsook his status as a prince among the damned, and came to the gates of heaven to repent his sins and beg forgiveness, vowing to accept any punishment. The archangel Michael did not kill him, but instead transformed him into a being of incredible supernatural power, carrying a portion of the might of heaven itself, but at the cost of everything he had been. His memory and personality were replaced by a singular drive to serve as the wraith of God. Previously, this role had been served by Eclipso, who claimed to have caused the biblical flood. But he had become uncontrollable. Thus the Spectre's first task was to strip Eclipso of his powers and to trap him inside a black diamond. Eclipso vowed vengeance on the Spectre and would return to wreak havoc on the earth several millennia later. The Spectre destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah for their sinfulness, unleashed a series of devastating plagues onto Egypt, brought down the walls of Jericho, and even stopped the sun in the heavens. After the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, the Spectre was cast into limbo, since beings of vengeance and forgiveness could not share the same plane of existence. When Jesus died on the cross, the Spectre was returned to the moral plane. But Christ's influence meant all aspects of God now had been bound to human souls. Michael had to seek out a suitable soul to serve as a host for the Spectre. He found one in an Indian man, whose entire family had been slaughtered by a witch posing as the Hindu deity Kali, whom they had worshipped. Michael offered her the chance to revenge his family. Despite being unaware of the nature and origin of his powers, he became the first true Spectre. He was eventually seduced and corrupted, spurning the Spectre Force and becoming the demonic creature Asmodust. Over the centuries, there would be other hosts, and thus other Spectres, or, like their predecessor, were equally ignorant of their true nature, until Jim Corrigan came along in the 1930s. Corrigan was the only son of a financial preacher, and his harsh upbringing caused him to rebel against his father and against his Christian background, and turn his back on God. Corrigan grew up to become one of New York's toughest police detectives. His recklessness and determination led him to wage a one-man war on crime, but his monomaniacal pursuit of justice made him a marked man. One night in 1939, gangster Gat Benson decided that Corrigan had been a thorn in his side for long enough. He kidnapped Corrigan and the detective's fiancée, Clarice Withston. There would be no mercy and no last-minute rescue. Corrigan was placed in a barrel that was then filled with cement and dropped off a pier into a river. Though dead, Corrigan's spirit was cast into limbo as it cried out for vengeance. His soul's rage was met by a mysterious voice, which offered him a chance to seek justice. Corrigan agreed and was immediately bonded with the Spirit Force. Returning to Earth to fight evil with the supernatural powers he now possessed, the latest incarnation of the Spectre took his vengeance on Benson and rescued Clarice, posing as an all-too-human police detective until the wrath of God was needed again. With his new mission as an agent of God, the Spectre became one of the most famous mystery men of the Golden Age, battling both conventional criminals and sorcerers, and demons that are almost as powerful as himself. In the early part of World War II, Hitler obtained the Spear of Destiny, an ancient artifact supposedly used to pierce the side of Christ on Calvary. It possessed awesome supernatural power. It was the only weapon that could kill the Spectre. Believing himself to be truly invincible, Hitler launched a full-scale naval assault against Britain, but a hastily assembled team of American mystery men stood against him. Summoned by the mystical hero Dr. Fate, whom he had first encountered in ancient Egypt, the Spectre grew to titanic size and waded into the English Channel, sinking the invading fleet and passing a supernatural judgment on its commander. After saving President Roosevelt from Hitler's Valkyries, the Spectre joined Dr. Fate and fellow heroes such as the Flash, Dr. Midnight, Johnny Thunder, and Hawkman in the first incarnation of the Justice Society of America, and the associated strike team known as the All-Star Squadron. Throughout World War II, the Spectre was an active member of the Justice Society, pursuing justice on the home front. Using spells cast with the Spear of Destiny and the Holy Grail, Hitler and his allies had created a supernatural sphere of influence that prevented the Spectre and other heroes from using their great powers to enter Axis territory and directly battle the Nazis. As the Allies gained the upper hand in the war, the enchantment was broken. The heroes finally confronted Hitler to stop his desperate attempts to invoke Ragnarok, Norse mythology's version of the apocalypse, and the Spectre pulled the Justice Society from the future to defeat him. After the war, the Justice Society led the Allied forces in their inspection of liberated Europe. The Spectre finally learned the true horrors of the Holocaust. Although he was persuaded to allow the war criminals to be tried at Nuremberg, the Spectre's ultimate response to the Holocaust has never been revealed. After thousands of years, the former Spectre host, Asmodeus, reappeared on Earth in search of revenge. It battled the Spectre across the astral and physical planes. Neither was able to gain the upper hand, until a spell of psychic amnesia cast by Asmodeus engulfed them both, capturing Asmodeus in human form and returning the Spectre to the familiar guise of Jim Corrigan. Neither had the slightest inkling of their former identities, and Corrigan returned to being a cop for the next 20 years. While on the trail of some crooks, Corrigan ended up at a seance where the family broke the amnesia spell, allowing him to remember his true nature as the Spectre. However, the spell breaking also restored Asmodeus' memories, and the demon attacked once more. The Spectre defeated him, purging him of his demonic element and sending Karaka back into the cycle of life. Sometime after the beginning of the modern age of superheroes, the Spectre's mission on Earth was ended. He became the guardian of heaven and hell, preventing sorcerers and mystics from venturing into forbidden realms. During this period, he encountered old friends, such as the Phantom Stranger, who was possibly a former angel himself, and the restless spirit Deadman, who persuaded him to allow the Swamp Thing to venture into Hades in search of Abby Cable's wrongly damned soul. The crisis on Infinite Earths forced all heroes, human, alien, natural and supernatural, to join forces. The Spectre travelled back to the dawn of time, once more growing to titanic size to fight the cosmically powered Anti-Monitor and protect the existence of a single consistent universe. After the crisis on Infinite Earths, the presence reduced the Spectre's powers somewhat and gave him a new mission on Earth. The Spectre was now to prevent people from killing others, and to avenge the unjustly slain by punishing their murderers in manners befitting the nature of their crimes. His dedication to this mission, and this mission alone, prevented the Spectre from intervening in other so-called crisis events. Until 0 hour, when he once again stood alongside his fellow heroes, against Hal Jordan to prevent him from rewriting history. The insanity of Jordan's intent was down to the fact that he was possessed by the demonic parasite entity Parallax, a sentient embodiment of fear and paranoia. The sheer scale of the Spectre's vengeance caused a rift between him and Corrigan, particularly when the Spectre destroyed the nation of Latvia as a punishment for its endless civil war, leaving only 2 opposing politicians as survivors, and threatening to kill the entire population of the state of New York if a wrongly convicted man was executed. Although Heaven judged that the Spectre had done the right thing, the US government feared what destruction he might wreak in the future. And so it sent Superman, armed with the Spear of Destiny, to bring the rogue Wraith under control once and for all. However, the power of the spear began to corrupt Superman, who was especially susceptible to magic. Once the Spectre had shown him what might happen, the spear was cast into outer space, where it could do no further harm. Seeking some form of higher meaning and purpose, Corrigan eventually confronted God, or his conception of God, in the form of his own abusive father, by finding the strength to forgive him. Corrigan gained closure, peace, and a place in the afterlife as the Spectre Force returned into the hereafter, awaiting a new host. Attempting both to cause chaos on Earth and eliminate his deadly rival Neron, the demon Etrigan bonded the new hostless Spectre to the renegade angel Asmodel, who used the power of the Spectre to freeze hell and release hordes of demons onto the earthly plane. Powerless to fight them, and with Jim Corrigan unwilling to become the Spectre once more, the group of heroes known as the Sentinels of Magic were guided to Purgatory by the Archangel Michael to find a suitable replacement. A soul in search of redemption. Despite Asmodel and Neron's attempts to replace him, Hal Jordan, a fallen hero and former Green Lantern, managed to convince the Spirit Force that accepting him as the Spectre's new host was a suitable punishment for his actions as Parallax. As the new Spectre, Hal Jordan tried to shift his mission from a quest for vengeance to one of redemption, often helping former friends at crucial points in their lives. He advised Superman when the Joker twisted reality, using a portion of magic blotted out all public knowledge of Wally West's secret identity as the Flash after it was revealed by Zoom, and counseled young Justice's ghostly teen secret, revealing that she had been sacrificed as part of her own brother's deal with a demon, and helping her cope with the consequences. But the Spectre Force was gradually being warped by the presence of Parallax, the evil parasitic entity which secretly possessed Hal. It began to affect the Spectre's judgment, but after an epic battle with the Justice League, the Spectre Force ejected both Hal and Parallax, allowing Hal to be resurrected in his preserved human body, leaving a disembodied Parallax to search for a new soul to possess. Hal learned that Parallax had taken him over while it was trapped by the Guardians in the central power battery, and that it was responsible for all his past crimes. Seeking to atone for the sins committed while under its influence, he has become the Green Lantern of Sector 2814, leaving the Spectre without a host once more. Jean Loring, ex-wife of Ray Palmer and murderer of Sue Dibney, was transformed into a new version of the villainous Eclipso and escaped from Arkham Asylum. She seduced a hostless Spectre into declaring war against magic, as it was an affront to God. The Spectre wreaked havoc across the astral and physical planes, killing 700 combat-trained sorcerers, blinding Madame Xanadu, and transforming the Phantom Stranger into a humble mouse. A ragtag team of mystic adventurers known as the Shadow Pact, including the Enchantress, Nightmaster, and Detective Chimp, sent Eclipso into exile in a harmless orbit around the sun, and empowered Captain Marvel by borrowing and siphoning the magical abilities of most of the Earth into him. But the Spectre, an empty spirit able to leech any kind of magic when in mortal danger, managed to defeat Marvel, kill the wizard Shazam, and destroy the Rock of Eternity, shattering it into 1,000,000 pieces. Whilst the magician Zatanna attempted to rebuild the Book of Eternity, as the Shadow Pactman recovered the 7 deadly sins of man, Lord of Order Nabu fought and was killed by the Spectre. This final, terrible act, which also ended the so-called Ninth Age of Magic, forced the Presence to intervene and send the Spectre into a new host as punishment for his actions. When Gotham City Detective Crispus Allen transferred to Gotham City Police Department, its major crimes unit, he had no idea of the cosmic changes that lay ahead. He saved his partner, Renee Montoya, who had become the new Question, by shooting Hypeman Black Spider, but the evidence which proved his actions were justified was disposed of by the crime scene technician Jim Corrigan. Perhaps the name should have tipped Chris off. His pursuit of the crooked cop led to Corrigan beating his informant to death, shooting Chris dead in an alley and getting away with his crimes. Sensing Chris's need for vengeance, the Presence bound the spirit force to his body against his will, to help defend the realms of magic, and then make his first transformation into the Spectre, to judge Star Sapphire for her crimes. At Chris's funeral, the Spectre asked him to bond permanently to the host, claiming he desperately needed a soul to humanize him. Chris refused, and was given a year to reconsider. Invisible, intangible, and still unavenged, Chris was frustrated by his family's suffering and his inability to affect the physical world or bring criminals to justice, so he accepted the Spectre's offer. He faced his greatest trial when his eldest son shot Jim Corrigan dead, and the Spectre was forced to end his life. The Spectre explained to Chris that he does not decide who is saved or damned. Sinners are subject to a higher judgment. Content with this, Chris has accepted his role as host. In a world of increasing moral complexity, his humanity has never been in greater need.